What if the biggest financial mistake you're making right now isn't something you did wrong, but something you never even knew existed? Imagine losing money every single month, not because you're spending too much, but because no one ever told you that you could be paying less. And the truth is, this isn't rare. It's happening to millions of people, quietly, consistently, and for years at a time, without them ever realizing it. There's a hidden pattern in how financial systems operate. They don't go out of their way to correct themselves in your favor. They don't automatically adjust just because your situation changes. Instead, they wait. They stay exactly the same until someone steps in and updates the information. And if that never happens, the system continues running as if nothing has changed, even when everything has. This is where the real issue begins. Most people assume that once they reach a certain stage in life, things will naturally become easier to manage. They believe that any benefits, reductions, or adjustments they qualify for will somehow be applied automatically. But that assumption is exactly what leads to long-term losses, because in reality, eligibility does not mean activation. And that gap between being eligible and actually receiving the benefit is where money quietly disappears. Think about it this way. If something reduces your expenses, but you never apply for it, then for all practical purposes, it doesn't exist in your life. The system doesn't remind you. It doesn't correct itself. It simply continues operating under outdated information. Now here's where things get even more important. There are multiple areas where these missed opportunities tend to happen. Not just one or two, but several, all working at the same time. And when combined, they can create a noticeable financial difference month after month. One of the biggest areas is taxation. Many people continue paying the same amount in taxes year after year without ever revisiting whether that amount is still accurate. They assume consistency means correctness. But financial situations are not static. They evolve. And when they do, the numbers need to be adjusted accordingly. In many cases, once certain conditions are met, the actual tax responsibility becomes significantly lower than what is being withheld. But if no one updates the details, the higher amount continues to be deducted. This creates a situation where money is consistently taken out unnecessarily. Sometimes it comes back later. Sometimes it doesn't fully return due to small errors or missed details. Either way, it's not being used when it could be most helpful right now. And the solution to this is surprisingly simple. It starts with checking what is currently being withheld and comparing it to what is actually required based on your present situation. That one step alone can reveal whether adjustments need to be made. But taxation is only one part of the picture. Another major area involves housing-related expenses. This is where some of the most impactful adjustments can occur, yet many people never look into them. They continue paying the same costs year after year without realizing that reductions or alternative options may already be available to them. In some cases, there are structured ways to lower ongoing costs based on eligibility criteria. In others, there are options to delay certain payments without penalties, allowing for better financial flexibility. These are not shortcuts or loopholes. They are built into the system, but they require awareness and action. And just like before, nothing changes unless someone takes that first step. Then there's healthcare, an area where even small misunderstandings can lead to ongoing expenses that could have been reduced or avoided entirely. Many people stick with the same plans or coverage simply because it feels easier than reviewing their options. But over time, needs change. And when they do, the existing setup may no longer be the most efficient choice. This can lead to higher out-of-pocket costs, unnecessary premiums, or missed opportunities for better coverage at a lower overall cost. Reviewing this area doesn't require expert-level knowledge. It simply requires asking the right questions and being open to updating what no longer fits. Now let's talk about everyday expenses that often go unnoticed. These are the smaller charges that don't seem significant on their own. Fees, renewals, standard costs that feel routine. Because they are familiar, they rarely get questioned. But familiarity does not always mean accuracy. There are situations where these costs can be reduced or even eliminated entirely based on eligibility. But since they are rarely reviewed, they continue indefinitely. Over time, these small amounts add up, month after month, year after year. And when combined with larger missed adjustments, the total impact becomes much bigger than most people expect. At this point, it might feel like there's too much to keep track of, too many areas, too many details. But the truth is, this doesn't require complexity. It requires a process, a simple, repeatable approach that focuses on clarity rather than confusion. Start by identifying where your money is currently going. Not in a detailed or overwhelming way, just enough to see the main categories: taxes, housing, healthcare, and recurring expenses. Once those are clear, the next step is to verify whether each one reflects your current situation. Not what it was years ago, not what it should be, but what it actually is right now. This is where many people discover gaps. Places where something should have been updated but wasn't. Areas where eligibility exists but hasn't been applied. Situations where outdated information is still being used. And once those gaps are identified, the next step becomes obvious. Take action. In most cases, this doesn't involve anything complicated. It's not about making drastic decisions or taking risks. It's about submitting the right information, updating the right details, and ensuring everything reflects your current reality. That's it. But the impact of doing this can be significant. Because instead of continuing to lose money quietly over time, you begin to retain more of it. Not through drastic lifestyle changes, but through simple alignment. And that's the key idea behind all of this. Financial improvement doesn't always come from earning more or spending less. Sometimes it comes from stopping unnecessary losses that have been happening unnoticed. Losses that are completely preventable once you're aware of them. So the real question becomes, how long has this been happening without being noticed? And more importantly, what changes once you decide to finally look into it? Because the moment you do, things start to shift. Expenses begin to reflect reality instead of outdated assumptions. Payments become more accurate, and the constant drain that once felt normal starts to disappear. Not all at once, but steadily, consistently. And over time, that consistency creates real financial breathing room, the kind that allows you to focus on what actually matters instead of constantly managing what feels like a fixed situation. Because in reality, it was never fixed. It was just never reviewed. As the process moves forward, there is another reality that many people don't realize until they are already in it. The waiting period is where most decisions are quietly shaped. It's not always about what you said or what documents you showed in the moment, but how everything connects behind the scenes. Systems review patterns, consistency, and intent. Even small details that seemed unimportant at first can suddenly carry weight. This is why staying calm and consistent from the beginning to the end is not just helpful, it's critical. At this stage, many individuals begin to overthink. They replay every question, every answer, every document they handed over. Doubt starts creeping in, and that's where mistakes usually happen. Not in the official process, but in what people do afterward. Some try to change their story, others attempt to add unnecessary explanations, and a few even reach out repeatedly in ways that raise concerns instead of building trust. The truth is, once your information is submitted, clarity matters more than quantity. Adding confusion rarely helps your case. There's also a common misunderstanding about how fast things should move. People expect immediate results, but structured systems are designed to take time. Each step has layers, and each layer ensures accuracy and fairness. Rushing or trying to bypass the process often backfires. The strongest approach is patience combined with readiness. Be prepared if you're asked for more details, but don't assume silence means something is wrong. Sometimes, silence simply means the process is working exactly as it should. Another important factor is how you handle communication if you are contacted again. Any follow-up is usually focused and specific. This is not the time to provide long explanations or unrelated information. Precision becomes your biggest advantage. Answer only what is asked, clearly and confidently. Avoid emotional responses and don't try to guess what they want to hear. Authenticity is far more reliable than trying to shape your answers to fit assumptions. At this point, documentation can still play a role, but only if it directly supports your case. Submitting unnecessary paperwork can complicate things instead of strengthening them. Every document should have a purpose. If it doesn't add clarity or confirm something important, it's better left out. Quality always outweighs quantity in these situations. One of the most overlooked aspects of this entire journey is consistency over time. Systems often compare current information with past records. If something doesn't match, even slightly, it can raise questions. This doesn't mean mistakes can't happen, but unexplained inconsistencies can slow everything down. That's why it's essential to stay accurate from the very beginning. Even small details like dates, names, and timelines should always align. There's also a psychological side to this process that many people ignore. Stress can lead to poor decisions. People start acting out of fear instead of logic. They may follow advice from unreliable sources or try shortcuts that seem helpful but actually create complications. The safest path is always the one based on verified information and a clear understanding of what is required. If something sounds too easy or too fast, it usually comes with hidden risks. As things progress, outcomes start becoming clearer, even if they are not officially announced yet. Subtle indicators often appear. These are not always obvious, but they can give you a sense of direction. However, it's important not to rely entirely on assumptions. Until you receive confirmed communication, everything remains in process. Staying grounded during this phase is key. For those who move successfully through this stage, it's rarely because they did something extraordinary. It's usually because they followed the process correctly, stayed consistent, and avoided unnecessary complications. Simplicity often wins over complexity. Clear information, honest responses, and patience create a strong foundation. If additional verification is required, it's not a negative sign. It simply means the system needs more clarity. Treat it as an opportunity to strengthen your position rather than a setback. Provide exactly what is requested, nothing more, nothing less. This level of discipline shows reliability, which is a major factor in decision-making. Another key point is timing. Responding too slowly can create delays, but responding too quickly without understanding the request can lead to errors. Balance is everything. Take enough time to understand what is being asked, but don't delay unnecessarily. A well-thought-out response is always more valuable than a rushed one. There is also the issue of external influence. Many people involve others in their process, seeking advice from friends, forums, or unofficial sources. While guidance can be helpful, too many opinions can create confusion. Not all advice is accurate, and following the wrong direction can harm your progress. It's important to filter what you hear and rely only on credible information. As you approach the final stages, everything becomes more structured and less flexible. This is where all previous steps come together. Decisions are not based on one single factor, but on the overall picture. Every detail you provided contributes to the final outcome. This is why consistency, clarity, and honesty remain the most powerful tools throughout the process. Some people expect a dramatic final moment, but in reality, outcomes are often communicated in a straightforward manner. There's no mystery once the decision is made. It's simply a result of everything that has been reviewed and verified. Accepting this helps you stay prepared, regardless of the outcome. If the result is positive, the next steps are usually clear and structured. Follow instructions carefully and avoid making assumptions. Even at this stage, attention to detail matters. Missing a step or misunderstanding a requirement can create unnecessary delays. If the result is not what you expected, it's important to stay calm and analytical. Understand the reasons behind the decision instead of reacting emotionally. In many cases, there are options available, but they require a clear understanding of what went wrong. Learning from the process is just as important as going through it. What truly separates successful outcomes from unsuccessful ones is not luck. It's preparation, awareness, and discipline. People who take the time to understand the process, stay consistent, and avoid shortcuts are always in a stronger position. It's not about being perfect, but about being reliable. At the end of the day, this entire journey is a test of how well you can manage information, handle pressure, and stay consistent under uncertainty. Every step has a purpose, and every requirement is there for a reason. When you respect the process instead of trying to outsmart it, your chances of success increase significantly. So if you're currently going through this or planning to, remember this. Keep everything clear, stay patient, and don't overcomplicate things. Focus on what matters, ignore unnecessary noise, and trust the process. The system is designed to identify clarity and consistency, and if you provide both, you're already ahead of most people. Benefits. Blueprint. USA.